Hello, everyone. So today we will be looking at the unit on backstory and organizing. Today we will focus on four aspects. The first one is explanation of the unit. Second, we will look at examples. The purpose of backstory is to reveal important information about an individual in a story. It also reveals how the character acts or thinks. An organizing principle is a guided idea used to direct a society, organization, or initiative.
It may also be revisited or changed.
We found a few examples that illustrate backstory and organizing principles within the class's case studies. So the first one is A Story Shaped Life by Sue Monk Kidd. This describes her backstory as being somebody who is a perfectionist, doesn't take time for herself, tries to distract herself by being overoccupied. So this turned her away from her faith. And it describes a situation where she has a heart attack, and this motivates her to find her faith again and reevaluate her organizing principles. So she decides to take a deeper look within herself, and once doing this, she goes about helping other people with workshops in order to write their story, and she decides that spirituality is her guide. And the next example is an article about a woman named Raphael Furland. It describes her backstory of her having an unstable childhood where she dealt with drug abuse at a young age and she was homeless by 16. She had a nomadic childhood, and she said she went to so many schools as a kid she lost count. So this is definitely an important part of her backstory. With the help of her social worker and just motivation within herself, she kept attending high school, and her social worker convinced her that she's very smart and she should go to college. So her organizing principle was she wanted to be a social justice worker and a social worker, work with international situations. And also being homeless herself, she decided she wanted to start a charity for the homeless. And yeah, she had a high GPA in college and she studied civil law. So that's a good example of backstory and organizing principles. We felt that both of these excerpts from class successfully demonstrated backstory and organizing principles because both stories told some information about the character prior to the situation that occurred within the story that demonstrated their organizing principles. And backstory and organizing principles are easily intertwined. Your organizing principles are important because that dictates how you live your life. The way you choose to behave is affected by your goals and what you're trying to achieve.
With you applying this to your healthcare profession, you're able to relate with your patients while learning their backstory, and you're able to talk about different topics with them while you're providing care. Secondly, when you talk to them normally, you are able to gain their compassion and their trust. And lastly, when you get to fully know them, you will understand everything about your patient. You will learn the rights and the wrongs of your patient as well.
With us in the healthcare profession, there might be some negative applications as well. We might get attached to our patients with getting to know them. Secondly, we might get distracted with the interactive ones more than the ones that are inactive. And lastly, we might be scared when we get really attached to our patients for unnecessary items.
We feel the most obvious symbol of backstory and organizing principles is a scrapbook or a photo album, because somebody's life is literally illustrated through photos, whether their parents start them a photo album when they're young and they take photos of them as they grow older, or they make one themselves. demonstrating like their family's accomplishments and things like that. It could also show organizing principles because we always document things that are important to us, and our organizing principles could be documented. Like if we have children, we take lots of photos of our children. That's something that motivates our life. Graduation, celebrating goals that we've achieved, your wedding, and just other important experiences like that are all going to be within your scrapbook or your photo album. Now that we've talked about the definition of backstory, organizing principles, how they negatively and positively potentially affect us when we're healthcare professionals, symbols that literally represent our topic, and 2 examples from class, we hope that you better understand what this unit was about. And also something we'd like you to remember is that your principles in your life, you can always change. You may not be able to change your backstory because that is something that already happened to you, but you can choose to let it affect you in a good or a bad way. We all come from different backgrounds, and that's okay. Life would be boring if we were all the same, but it's up to you to decide how you let that affect your life, and what you use to organize your life is important too. So we can all take that information and apply it as future professionals, and it's a very good lesson to keep in mind when we all go into the healthcare field. So thank you for listening to our unit. We hope you better understand the topic, and thanks. Bye-bye.